Background of Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was born on May 6, 1856 and died on September 23, 1939. He was a physiologist, a medical doctor, and father of psychoanalysis, and is generally recognized as one of the most influential and authoritative thinkers of the 20th century. He was an Austrian neurologist and the co-founder of the psychoanalytic school of psychology.
His proposed theories. The origin of Freud's early work with the psychoanalysis can be linked to Joseph Breuer. Freud actually credits Breuer with the discovery of the psychoanalytical method. One case started this phenomenon that would shape the field of psychology for decades to come, the case of Anna O. In 1880, a young girl came to Breuer with the symptoms of what was then called female hysteria. Anna O was a 21-year-old highly intelligent young girl. She presented with symptoms such as paralysis of the limb, split personality, and amnesia. Today, these symptoms are known as conversion disorder. After many doctors had given up and accused Anna O of faking her symptoms, Breuer decided to treat her sympathetically, which he did with all of his patients. He started to hear her mumble words during what he called state of absence. Eventually, Breuer started to recognize some of the words and wrote them down. He hypnotized her and repeated the words to her. Breuer found out that the words were associated with her father's illness and death. Anna O coined the term talk therapy to describe this process.
3 levels of the mind. Freud developed a topographical model of the mind, whereby he described the features of the mind's structure and function. Freud used the analogy of an iceberg to describe the 3 levels of the mind. On the surface is consciousness, which consists of those thoughts that are the focus of our attention now, and this is seen as the tip of the iceberg. The preconscious consists of all which can be retrieved from memory. The third and most significant region is the unconscious. Here lie the processes that are the real cause of most behavior. Like an iceberg, the most important part of the mind is the part you cannot see. The unconscious mind acts as a repository, a cauldron of primitive wishes and impulse kept at bay, and mediated by the preconscious area. For example, Freud found that some events and desires were often too threatening or too painful for his patients to acknowledge, and believed such information was locked away in the unconscious mind. This can happen through the process of repression. Sigmund Freud emphasized the importance of the unconscious mind, and a primary assumption of Freudian theory that the unconscious mind governs behavior to a greater degree than people suspect. Indeed, the goal of psychoanalysis is to make the unconscious conscious.
Freud's personality theory. Freud later developed a more structural model of the mind comprising the entities id, ego, and superego. These 3 have most commonly been conceptualized as 3 essential parts of the human personality. Freud assumed that the id operated at an unconscious level according to the pleasure principle. The id comprises 2 kinds of biological instincts, which Freud called eros and thanatos. Eros, or life instinct, helps the individual to survive. It directs life-sustaining activities such as respiration, eating, and sex. The energy created by the life instincts is known as libido. In contrast, thanatos, or death instinct, is viewed as a set of destructive forces presented in all human beings. When this energy is directed outward onto others, it is expressed as aggression and violence. Freud believed that the eros is stronger than thanatos, thus enabling people to survive rather than self-destruction. Ego develops from the id during infancy. The ego's goal is to satisfy the demands of the id in a safe, socially accepted way. In contrast to the id, the ego follows the reality principle as it operates in both conscious and unconscious mind. The superego develops during early childhood and is responsible for ensuring moral standards are followed. Superego operates a morality principle and motivates us to behave in a socially responsible and acceptable manner. For example, The superego can make a person feel guilty if rules are not followed. When there is a conflict between the goals of an id and superego, the ego must act as a referee and mediate this conflict. The ego can deploy various defense mechanisms to prevent it from becoming overwhelmed by anxiety.
Psychosexual stages. In the highly repressive Victorian society in which Freud lived and worked, women, in particular, were forced to repress their sexual needs. In many cases, the result was some form of neurotic illness. Freud sought to understand the nature and variety of these illnesses by retracting the sexual history of his patients. This was not primarily an investigation of sexual experiences as such. Far more important were the patient's wishes and desires, their experience of love, hate, shame, guilt, and fear, and how they handled these powerful emotions. It was this that led the most controversial part of Freud's work, his theory of psychosexual development and the Oedipus complex. Freud believed that children are born with a libido, a sexual urge. There are a number of stages of childhood, during which the child seeks pleasure from a different object. To be psychologically healthy, we must successfully complete each stage. Mental abnormality can occur if a stage is not completed successfully and the person becomes fixated in a particular stage. This particular theory shows how adult personality is determined by childhood experiences.
Criticism. The controversy which exists in relation to Freud is more heated than relating to virtually any other recent thinker, with criticisms ranging from the contention that Freud's theory was generated by logical confusion arising out of his alleged long-standing addiction to cocaine, to the view that he made an important but grim empirical discovery which he knowingly suppressed in favor of the theory of the unconscious.
Contemporary views. While Freud's theory have been widely criticized, it is important to remember that his works made important contributions to psychology. His work sparked a major change in how we view mental illness by suggesting that not all psychological problems have physiological causes. His belief that mental problems could be resolved by actually talking about them helped revolutionize psychotherapy. Since many contemporary psychologists do not give much credence to a lot of Freud's ideas, you might find yourself asking why you should bother learning about Freudian theory at all. First and perhaps most importantly, in order to understand where psychology is at today, it is essential to make a look back at where we've been and how we got here. Freud's work provides an insight into an important movement in psychology that helped transform how we think about mental health and how we approach psychological disorders. By studying these theories and those that came after, we can gain a better understanding of psychology's rich and fascinating history.
Additional information. Freud considered dreams to be the royal road to the unconscious, as it is in dreams that ego's defenses are lowered, so that some of the repressed material come through the awareness in distorted form. Dreams perform important functions to the unconscious mind and serve as valuable clues to how the unconscious mind operates. He went on to propose that a major function of dreams was the fulfillment of wishes. He distinguished between the manifest content of a dream and the latent content, the symbolic meaning of dream. The manifest content is often based on the events of the day. The process whereby the underlying wish is translated into the manifest content, called dream work. The purpose of dream work is to transform the forbidden wish into a non-threatening form, thus reducing anxiety and allowing us to continue sleeping.
Audio preview.